Hey there, Legal Tea listeners. This is your host, Jenny Roselle. Welcome back for another episode today. Today is a current trends topic where we talk about things going on currently that are relevant and pertinent to my estate and elder law world, and or maybe they're things I've seen on the news or stumbled across on social media. Well, today we are going to talk about something that my law firm and I keep getting asked about, and that is something called deed theft or title theft. Now, you may have seen commercials on TV or scary ads, online advertising, something like protect your house or protect the deed of your house. And what they're essentially advertising is kind of like glorified, let's call it, insurance. It's kind of like insurance. But, anyways, they're trying to sell you something. And I think these commercials and ads are startling and they're jarring to people, which is why they end up asking me about it or my firm about it. So today's episode is on that, deed theft, and we're going to talk about what it is first, and then talk about, is it really happening? And lastly, I'll give you some of my kind of general professional thoughts about it. So first, what is it? What is deed theft? Well, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's essentially where someone illegally obtains the title or your deed to a property that they do not rightfully own. Most often, it happens when someone forges the property owner's signature on a deed transfer document and transfers the property to themselves, the fraudster. Now, the ultimate goal of the fraudster is to gain legal title or legal ownership of the property that they do not actually have the right to own. And that way, what they end up doing is they can either sell it, or they can use it as collateral for a loan, or they can open like a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, or they can refinance the mortgage to cash out the equity. Insanely and terrifyingly, the fraudster can do a lot, clearly. So, yeah, deed theft is a terrifying thought, right? As I always tell people, scammers are smart people, guys, and they're smarter than people give them credit for. They know how to squirm their way through society and make out like a bandit. Sadly, when deed theft does happen, it can be very difficult for victims to detect because the fraudsters, they know what they're doing. So it can take significant time and energy and legal effort for the true owner to reclaim their property. So, is this really happening? And that's the question I often get from clients and, people I talk to. Is this actually even happening? Well, it may be because I'm a lawyer and I just cannot answer anything with a short yes or no, because you know what every lawyer's favorite answer is to every question, right? It depends. So I guess the short answer, if someone made me answer quickly, would be yes, it is happening. But my much longer answer goes a little something like this. I think there's a lot of fear-based marketing going on too. And actually, in preparation for this episode, I did some research on this whole deed theft topic. And one of the articles I found was on Kiplinger. And the subtitle of the article said, "Avoid deed theft with these free steps. You do not need to pay a company to safeguard your home title," end quote. That's what I mean. I think a lot of these commercials and ads are preying on people's fear. They're preying on people being terrified of this. Interestingly, the Kiplinger article states, quote, "Have you seen scary ads for deed theft or home title fraud protection? They often claim that this type of crime is soaring, but there's no clear evidence that this is true. Nor is there a good reason to shell out for a service that protects your home's title since you can do much or all of this monitoring on your own for free," end quote. They continue by saying exactly what I was just blabbing about a second ago. They say, quote, "Deed theft is a real issue. Is it a growing problem? Well, that's hard to determine. The FBI collects broad data on real estate fraud without reporting specifically on the type of fraud, end quote. So what that means is there's many different types of fraud that can happen regarding real estate, and this is just one type. And so it sounds like the FBI doesn't like specifically track like any specific type, that it's just real estate fraud in general. I hope that makes sense. So, as I said earlier, it's happened and it is happening, but simultaneously, the scary ads, the jarring commercials are perhaps pouring just gasoline onto the fire to make it seem maybe bigger than what it is. Nonetheless, since it has happened and is happening, let's shift to kind of my general thoughts about this topic, which include some things that you can do to prevent deed theft from happening to you. Now, is this something you need to be losing sleep over? I would personally say probably not. It's not to me dramatically different than someone stealing your identity or stealing your wallet. Is it an absolute pain in the butt to deal with and recover from? Yes, of course it is. Though all of these acts are wrong, you know, whether it's deed theft, fraud, stolen identity, all of these are wrong. And there's recourse to these bad acts. And I doubt you're laying awake at night concerned about if someone steals your wallet tomorrow, or laying awake thinking, well, what if tomorrow is the day that someone steals my identity? I would say most people don't think that deeply about something to cause them to lose sleep, become stressed, etc. Is it concerning though? Of course it is. Of course. However, with all of these things, there are things that can be done to protect you and your home. And this piece I'm going to shift into, again, inspired by that Kiplinger article that's in the source links for this episode. That article shares 4 things that you can do that does not involve paying a company, which is what those scary ads and commercials are wanting you to do. So the first tip, I should say, is to pay close attention to your mail and bills that are coming in. As the Kiplinger article states, quote, keep a close eye out for mortgage, tax, utility bills. Sometimes thieves change the address of bills to hide their crime, giving them more time to profit from the property, end quote. That's a really great tip. They go on to say, too, that track what bills you normally get and confirm that you keep receiving them. So in the event you randomly stop getting a bill, well, that may be a sign that something's wrong. A second tip is to pay close attention to your property record. Property ownership, contrary to what a lot of people think, is actually public record. As the article states, quote, anyone can check local registries or the county recorder's office for land records and property deeds online in the United States, end quote. Now, I'm super familiar with knowing how to look up property ownership because what I do as an estate and elder law attorney, I just have to do it all the time. And usually property ownership can be found through one of the county offices, like the recorder or the treasurer, and I say the treasurer because usually the treasurer is often who's sending out property tax statements. So if you can dig and find how to keep an eye out for your property ownership through your county office, that's a second tip. Third, it is recommended that you keep a close eye on your credit reports. As Kiplinger's article states, quote, most people only look at their credit reports when they are applying for a mortgage or a loan. However, you should be more vigilant, end quote. What they mean is keeping a close eye on what kind of debts show up on these reports. And are they legitimate? Are the balances correct? Now, Kiplinger mentions 3 major credit report agencies. Those are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, who all offer a free credit report through annualcreditreport.com. So that's really great to know. Fourth, the final tip involves checking to see if you have a title insurance policy. Kiplinger states, quote, when you buy a house or refinance, you can actually purchase enhanced title insurance through the American Land Title Association, which insures against impersonation or forgery, end quote. So it may not be a bad idea, guys, to consider if you buy or refinance anytime soon, to consider this enhanced title insurance option, especially if this deed theft thing is super worrisome to you. If this does not feel like enough, like these four things that I just mentioned, I'm sure those companies that are selling kind of like insurance for your deed are legitimate. As the Kiplinger article mentions, you could pay one of those third-party companies if you want. The company that they specifically mention is called Home Title Lock, which claims that they will monitor your home's deed and title 24/7 to prevent deed theft. It can probably be compared to paying for a service to protect and monitor your identity from getting stolen. Can you pay for a service like that? Yeah, you can. And if that helps you sleep better at night, then do it to it. Though, before you jump straight to something like that, at least consider doing those four things I just talked about that were from the Kiplinger article and see if that makes you feel comfortable enough. And if so, you'll save yourself some money. But at the end of the day, we have to do whatever, that is not only going to make us feel secure, but also, whatever is not only feels secure and protected and safe, but also what makes sense economically for us and whether we can afford it. Home Title Lock, that company I mentioned a second ago, they're not free. So it definitely comes with an expense. Now, another thing to know that people can do to protect themselves is that many county offices offer a notification service. Now, sometimes they're free, sometimes they're not, but the fee, from my understanding, is typically nominal when it's not free. So if something is recorded in the county records, for your property or against your property, you will be notified through this county notification service. So that would be a super quick catch if someone was up to some funny business. From my understanding, these notification services are technically like a third party, but they're ran by county offices and not like a national service. So if this is something you would be interested in, and even if not, it's definitely something to possibly call your local county office, your local recorder's office, and check to see if they have something like this and whether it's free. And if it's free, definitely sign up. And if it's not free, how much is it? And then you can decide whether it's a good use of money. Now, if deed theft is something that actually happens to you, you should absolutely involve law enforcement to report it and likely seek legal advice immediately as well. It's unfortunately probably going to require a lawyer to get involved to make things right with the property record. And if there's any available recourse against the fraudster, they can help with that too. And I know all of that seems less than ideal because it is. So that's why I wanted to do this episode, really just to help and get some information out there about things that you can do proactively and even reactively if deed theft happens to you or it's something that you're concerned about. With this topic becoming more popular, whether it's warranted or not, its popularity, feel free to pass this episode along to anyone that you would think would benefit from hearing more information about this deed theft topic and some things that, people can do to avoid it happening to them or to you too. Okay, let's wrap this episode up, shall we? Next week, we are back to the celebrity estate planning type of episode. And during those episodes, we dive into like a big name person or a celebrity that has passed away. And we dive into how their estate looked from like an estate planning perspective. Well, next week's episode is about the very famous Joan Rivers. So tune in for that next week, Legal Tea listeners. Talk to you then and stay well.